Welcome to this tutorial brought to you by tutvid.com. This is yet another tutorial in the series of videos that Howard from iceflowstudios.com and I are doing on different web elements. This tutorial is inspired by 365psd.com. There's going to be a link to exactly what inspired this Apple-styled user interface that we're going to be creating today in Photoshop. This is an example of what we're going to be creating, pretty much the entire thing with the exception of actually taking the photographs and maybe the color in the background. So let's get started. I have this background here that I'm going to be starting with, and my document, just for note or reference, is 1280 by 720 in case you're following along. And I've just thrown this background in here, and how exactly to create this background, I have a tutorial on this, and it's going to be uploaded the same day as this tutorial that you're listening to right now has been uploaded. So go check that out if you want to create this background. I've also just thrown in some color effects here, and it's a few levels adjustment layers. I'm actually going to lighten it up just a little bit like so, and reduce the color effect just a touch. There we go. So we've got our color effects. We're all set and ready to go. The first step is going to be dragging in our content, sort of the dummy content, which is going to be in place of the video. So I'm going to drag in this image that I have, and you can see it here. This is a photograph that I shot a few months ago. I'm going to size it down a little bit. Something like right about there. Should be cool. And I'm going to commit those changes, and you're going to see that it's actually dragged in as a smart object. So if I need to size it up, I'll be able to size it up, or further down, whatever I need to do, it's available. And as I was mentioning, I shot this photograph a few months ago, and it's a composite. Both photos were taken separately and then merged together later in Photoshop. And I'm going to have a link to the model, Kat, to her Facebook page in the description of this video if you'd like to go like it. And this is a friend of hers. So let's go ahead now and create sort of the shadow underneath our player. I'm going to create a new layer, so I'm going to go layer, new layer, and I'm going to name this shadow. And I might actually just drag this beneath the wallpaper or the content layer. Let's rename that content so we don't get confused. So we have shadow, and it's now below our video content. I'm going to grab my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to drag out a selection slightly wider than the content, and about that tall. And I'm going to use my arrow keys to nudge it over exactly how I want it. Now I'm going to go Edit, Fill, and I'm going to use black, hit OK. And I'm going to deselect, Command or Control D. I'm going to go Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And we're going to Gaussian blur this about 15 pixels like so, hit OK. And it's a little too tall, so I'm going to hit Command or Control T to free transform, holding down my Alt or Option key. I'm going to pull these top and bottom handles together, just like so. Hit Enter to commit that change. Now, we're going to go Layer, Layer Mask, Reveal All. It's going to throw a layer mask right there on our layer. We're going to grab the brush tool, and this is about what I want. A big 300 pixel brush with the hardness set to 0% and reduce the opacity to 50 or 60%. We're going to set our foreground color to black by hitting this little arrow to flip our foreground and background color. And I'm just going to click a couple times. Once out here, make sure, yep, there we go. And then one more time right in here. There we go. So we're just fading off the edge of that shadow. So I'm going to click over here once and twice. And we'll see right there. So we're just sort of fading our shadow out, just like so. Let's now go ahead and grab our rounded rectangle tool right here. And we're going to set it to draw a shape path. And we're also going to set the radius to 10 pixels. We're just going to draw out sort of the dock that's going to hold all of our buttons here on our video content player. Something like that. Should fit the bill nicely. Right about there should be big enough. And the reason we're not seeing anything is because we had the shadow layer selected and we just drew that shape layer beneath our content. Let's drag it up above the content, and we're going to zoom in just a little bit here. What we want to do right now is go ahead and first of all align this shape to our content. So I'm actually going to zoom back out before I zoom in. And I'm going to Command or Control click the content layer's thumbnail. It's going to load that as a selection. I still have the shape layer selected. I'm going to grab my move tool, and I'm just going to choose to align the horizontal centers. So there we go. We've aligned that perfectly to the horizontal center of our video content. Command or Control D to deselect. We now need to add a series of layer styles to the shape. So let's get started with that. We're going to go Layer, Layer Style, and let's start with an Inner Shadow. So we're going to go Inner Shadow, and we're going to set the Inner Shadow to a blend mode of normal. We're going to set the fill color to white, and we're going to set the opacity to 20%. We might end up weakening it just a little bit in a moment. Deselect Use Global Light. Set the angle to -90, so we're going to run a little bit of light along the bottom of this little dock. Set the distance to 1 and the size to 0. So just a nice little light across the bottom of our player dock. Next, what we're going to do is apply an outer glow. With the outer glow, we're going to set it to normal. We're going to set the opacity to about 50. And we're going to set the color to black. The size can remain at 5 pixels, that's perfectly fine. And we're also going to apply a bevel and emboss. Now, look, here in the bevel and emboss, there we go. We're going to choose inner bevel, smooth. We're going to bump the depth up to about 250, really increase that contrast and the light that we've got happening in there. Set the direction to up, that's good. The size can actually go to 0. And we're going to choose use global light. We can leave that checked on in this case. And we're going to set this to 120 by 30. Actually, let's try bumping this up to something like 60. That looks cool. And let's reduce the opacity to 30%. So just like that, we've got a nice subtle line streaking right there across the top of our player dock as well. Go ahead and hit OK to commit those changes. Now what we want to do, we want to zoom in on this guy. So Command or Control plus a couple times. And I'm actually going to move my layer panel over, which I can't. It's as collapsed as it'll go. Grab the rectangle tool, the rounded rectangle tool, excuse me. Leave all of the settings the same, and we're going to draw out the progress bar. I'm going to draw out a nice little bar, about, let's say, that big. That should be cool. And I'm going to set the fill color by double-clicking on this little color thumbnail. We're going to set the fill color to, let's go with 4C, 4C, 4C. So sort of not quite a 50% gray, a little bit darker than a 50% gray, a 30% gray. Hit OK. And we want to align this to the center of our dock, so I'm going to Command or Control click the vector mask of the dock layer and hit V to grab my move tool and align the horizontal centers, just like so. Command or Control D to deselect. And I'm just going to nudge this guy down a little bit, just like that. Let's go ahead and apply a drop shadow to the shape, which really is going to act more as an extender, just to extend the shape sort of 1 pixel straight down. So go Layer, Layer Style, Drop Shadow, and we're going to set the blend mode to normal, the opacity to 100%, and we're going to give it the same exact fill as our shape. So it's at 4C, 4C, 4C. And you can see it's giving us some crazy results there, but that's because we need to contain it. Uncheck Use Global Light, set the angle to 90 and the distance to 1 and the size to 0. So there we go, we've just sort of extended our shape 1 pixel straight down. Go ahead and hit OK. Now we're going to duplicate this layer, Command or Control J, and I want to dump that drop shadow. So I'm going to go Layer, Layer Style, Clear Layer Style. And now that we've cleared the layer style, grab the Direct Selection tool right here. Hotkey for that is A. Note it's the Direct Selection tool, the white arrow, not the Path Selection tool. Once you've selected that, make sure you have your layer shape, or shape layer, excuse me, selected, and click on the actual path. You want to try to really click on the path. Select each anchor point by holding on the Shift key. We want to select all 3 anchor points right there on the left, or excuse me, the right side of this progress bar. Once I've got those selected, I'm going to hold down my Shift key and use my left arrow key to nudge it backward, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 times, something like that. Should be cool. This is sort of going to be the indicator of, hey, this is how much of your sound file or movie file or whatever has downloaded. Now that we've done that, we need to go ahead and apply a gradient overlay to this shape. So we're going to go Layer, Layer Style, Gradient Overlay. And this is going to be a pretty simple gradient overlay. It's going to run from black. I'm going to open up my gradient editor by just clicking on that gradient bar. It's going to start down here at the bottom of it's going to be black, and it's going to run to the same color as the bar underneath, 4C, 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 like so. Hit OK. You can see we've got a nice little gradation effect happening right there. Hit OK to commit those changes, and just select the shape layer below it to see what we've got going on. We've got a very cool little bar. Go ahead and duplicate this layer, Command or Control J, and we're going to do the same exact thing. And you can see actually it's going to leave those anchor points selected, so we're going to go Shift and nudge to the left, nudge to the left, nudge to the left just a couple times. And we're going to edit this gradient overlay. So I'm going to hit that little arrow, you see that I just did, there in the Layers panel, double click on Gradient Overlay. And this needs to be a colored gradient. We want it to be very clear, hey, this is the good stuff, this is what you've seen so far. Pay attention to this bar, it's the most important. We're going to open up the gradient editor, and we're going to set some blues here. So I'm going to double click on the black anchor point, and this blue is going to be 2259, oh, 2259, there we go, E5. So it's a nice bright vibrant blue at the bottom. Double click on the lighter gray, and we're going to set this to 8F B5FA. So a nice light sort of sky-ish blue. Hit OK, and hit OK to commit those changes. I'm going to collapse that layer style. I'm going to select the shape layer beneath it. I'm going to zoom out to 100% by hitting Command or Control 1. You can see there we've sort of created the progress bar of our Apple UI. Next, go ahead and grab the rectangle tool located right there. Hotkey is U. We're going to set our foreground color to white by hitting X to flip our foreground and background colors. And I'm going to select the top shape layer, So we're going to place this shape above these. Now I'm going to create a little tiny white square. I'm just going to hold down my Shift key and drag out a tiny little square. And I'm going to zoom way in here so we can get a good look at it. And it needs to be a little bit smaller, so I'm going to hit Command or Control T to enter free transform. Holding my Shift key, I'm just going to nudge or drag, when I see the curved arrow, so I can rotate 45 degrees so I get a diamond shape. Holding down my Shift and Alt keys, I'm going to resize this diamond shape, to be a bit smaller. Commit those changes by hitting the little check icon. Grab your Move tool and just move this guy right down. So he sits right at the end of our blue loading bar. It needs to be a little bit smaller. I'm going to hit Command or Control T and just size it down a little bit more. There we go. Place it right there on the edge. And if you want it to be pixel perfect, just spend just a brief moment and tweak it. There we go. Something like that looks cool. You can see we've got our little sort of front of our blue our blue progress bar, streaking across this track we've created for it. Next, we want to just go ahead and grab our text tool, and note I've got my foreground color set to white. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and we're going to place the current location of our little progress bar, and then we're going to sort of do the negative number of minutes that are left in the little bit of media that's being watched. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to go 00 colon, I'm just going to go pick an arbitrary number, 36 for the sake of what we're doing here. Commit these changes, and before I bring text over to the other side, I'm going to get this text over here right. I'm going to grab my Move tool, I'm going to adjust this text, bring it right about there, that looks cool, and I'm going to go Window Character to open up my character panel. Now here I want to just check on a couple things. I want to make sure that I've got this size small enough, so I'm going to zoom out to 100%. It looks maybe a little bit big. Let's bring it down to 6 point, and that's definitely too small. Let's see what 7 looks like. Nope, don't like 7. Let's go back to 8. We're going to stick with 8 point. And play around with your anti-aliasing. Usually with small type, sharp or crisp are going to work best if you're not using like pixel fonts, in which case you're going to go with none. So you can try sharp. That actually looks pretty cool. But I like crisp a little bit more. So we're going to stick with that, and I just have a plain Arial font. You can use pretty much any font you want, but usually it's going to be something fairly simple. Once we have that, I'm going to zoom out just a touch here. Grab your Move tool, hold down the Alt key, and drag it straight to the right, and hold down your Shift key so you maintain that flat line straight across. And just double click on this, and we're going to change this to, say, -0 to 36. Why not? We'll go with 2 minutes and 36 seconds are left in our clip, and just nudge it over just a little bit. So there we go. We've placed sort of the time stamper. Now that we've done this, we're going to start building the play button and the next and previous frame buttons. Grab the Custom Shape tool right here, located beneath the Rectangle tool, and we need to look at the custom shapes we have. So here are the custom shapes. You can hit the little shape drop-down menu, and then we also have this flyout menu where we can load in other default, included with Photoshop, libraries of shapes. So you can just load them all in by hitting all, which is what I've done here. And I want to find a nice triangle that I can use. Got some diamonds. Here's a nice sharp triangle, and there's also a triangle, sort of a yield sign, if you will. And that you can use if you want little rounded corners on your play button. I want the nice sharp edges on my play button, so I'm going to choose the regular triangle. My foreground color is set to white. That's fine. I'm just going to draw out a nice little triangle holding down the Shift key. Again, I'm choosing for my Custom Shape tool to draw a shape layer. That's exactly what I want. Now hit Command or Control T to rotate this. Holding down my Shift key, I'm going to rotate it until I get a nice play button. There we go. Something like that looks cool. I'm actually going to make it just a little bit bigger. There we go. Commit those changes by hitting the check icon. Grab the Move tool, and I want to align this horizontally within our dock. So I'm going to Command or Control click that vector mask all the way down here at the bottom, and I'm in my Move tool already. So go ahead and align horizontally. Command or Control D to deselect, and then just using my eyes, I'm going to align it vertically between the top of our little progress bar and the top of our dock. It actually kind of looks like it's right where I want it to be. Maybe I'll just nudge it up one just to maybe make it a little bit higher than center. Now that we've done that, we need to go ahead and apply a couple layer styles to this little play button. So we're going to start by applying an inner shadow. We're going to go Layer, Layer Style, Inner Shadow. And this is simply going to be for a highlight. You're not even going to see it because right now the fill color is white, so just bear with it, or bear with me for a moment. We're going to set the blend mode to normal, the color to white. Opacity, we're going to crank it all the way up to 100%. We really want this to be a sharp highlight. Uncheck Use Global Light and set the angle to 180. We just want a nice sharp highlight running up and down along the left side of these buttons. We're going to set the distance to 1 and the size to 0. Next, what we want to do is create a little gradient. So we're going to choose Gradient Overlay, and we're going to open up the Gradient Editor, and we're going to create a new gradient here. We're going to set the black color stop to D9, 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 a nice light gray. And then we're just going to set the white color stop to just off-white, just FA, FA, FA. Yeah, you can see 98% brightness, so just a touch off of white. Hit OK. And that looks about right. We're going to go ahead and hit OK to commit those changes. Now that we've done that, we're going to create the next and previous frame buttons. This is going to be kind of cool. We're going to hit Command or Control J to duplicate this. And using my Move tool, I'm going to hold down my Shift key and I'm going to drag it straight to the right. And we want to downsize this a little bit. So Command or Control T to free transform and set the width and height up here in your tool options bar to 65%. Each one needs to be 65%. Go ahead and commit those changes. And there we go, we have our first button. Command or Control J to duplicate this and nudge this to the right until it's just perfect. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to downsize this just a little bit, just so we can sort of keep the downward trend of our arrows getting smaller as they get away from the play button. So Command or Control T, and we're just going to do this very subtly, a width and height of 90%. So go ahead and duplicate or commit those changes, excuse me. And we're going to select both of these top layers, these two new arrows. Using my Shift key, I'm going to select the bottom layer and select the top layer, like so. And I'm going to hit Command, well, I can't use Command or Control J because I have multiple layers selected. I'm going to drag both of these layers down to the new layer icon. That's more like it. It's going to duplicate both of them. You can see now we have 4 new white arrow layers. And I'm going to drag these guys straight across, holding down my Shift key to make sure they remain in a perfectly straight line with my next frame arrows. And instead of just flipping these horizontally, I actually want to rotate them all the way around, because remember, this arrow right here is a little bit smaller than this arrow. So we want to make sure that this guy is going to end up on the outside. So I'm going to hit Command or Control T with both layers selected, and I'm just going to set the width and height to negative 100%. Oh, negative 100 for width and height. There we go. Go ahead and commit that change, and there we have it. We have flipped those arrows. Now all that's left to do is just position them so they're about in the same position with respect to the main play button as the next frame button is. There we go. We've created those buttons. Now go ahead and grab the rounded rectangle tool again. We're going to leave all the settings just as they were, and we're going to set our foreground color to black. So just hit the letter X to flip your foreground and background colors. And we're going to draw out a small volume track right over here. Something like that should fit the bill. Right about there is cool. And we're not really going to see it because we're drawing a black shape over an already black object. What we need to do is apply a little drop shadow and a gradient overlay to this shape. So let's go Layer, Layer Style, Drop Shadow. And we're going to set the blend mode to normal. We're going to set the color to 4C, 4C, 4C. We're going to set this to don't use global light, so uncheck global light, angle of 90 degrees, a distance of 1 pixel, and a size of 0. We're also going to go ahead and apply a gradient overlay, so hit gradient overlay. We're going to leave the blend mode normal, opacity at 100, it's perfect. We're going to run this from black up to a color of 404040. Well, 40, there we go. Hit OK, and OK again, and OK once more. And we have our little volume bar. You can see there it is, looks great. What we need to do after this is create little sound icons that are going to sit on either side of the sound bar, indicating, hey, if you're over here on the left side of the sound bar, it's going to be really quiet or no noise. But as you drag it to the right, it's going to get louder and louder and louder. We're going to do that using the shape tools as well. So I'm going to flip my foreground and background color, and I'm just going to draw out a big rounded rectangle right up here so we can see what we're working on. And what's happened is this shape layer has inherited the layer styles from the layer beneath it. So if you see something like this happening, check out the tool options bar. You can see right here style. Just hit that drop down menu and choose no style. There we go. We can see our foreground color has in fact filled our shape. Next, grab the pen tool. Now this part's kind of important. We want to look at the pen tool, and we're going to choose the add to shape area icon right up here. It's sort of like the double box. And I'm going to draw a shape coming right out of the top corner of my rounded rectangle. Hold down my Shift key. I'm just going to draw out sort of the face or funnel part of a speaker. I'm holding down the Shift key to, create perfect 45-degree angles. And that's not about right. Let's go right about there. There we go. Cool. And then just close that shape off. Now that we have this shape, what we're going to do is we need to obviously align it with or line it up with our little rounded rectangle here, so it at least looks somewhat convincing. So I'm going to grab my path selection tool, and I'm going to select it, and I'm just going to nudge it in a little bit more, Something right about there looks cool. And we're going to select both of these paths. Because we drew with the pen tool using the Add to Shape Area icon selected, if we check out our Paths panel, you can see that both of these paths are here within sort of the same path layer, if you will. That's good news for us because what we want to do is select both of these with our Path Selection tool. It's the black arrow, hotkey A, and just hit the Combine key. It's going to combine them into one shape, just like so. And it's not quite perfect, as you can see, but we can take the Direct Selection tool if we like, and we can kind of play with these anchor points and nudge this guy over just a little bit if need be, and we can mess with it and make it perfect if we wish to do so. We're not going to do that for the sake of this tutorial. What I want to do instead is go ahead and just free transform this shape. So I'm going to hit Command or Control T and size it way down. I mean, make it tiny. I'm going to hit Command or Control H while I'm in free transform mode to get rid of the little anchor handles and nonsense that surrounds the shape, and hit Command or Control H to bring them back and zoom in a little bit now that I've moved my shape. I'm holding down Shift and Alt, by the way. There'll be Shift and Option on the Mac to constrain proportions and zoom this or size this down toward the center of the shape. Hit the little check icon to commit those changes. We've got our little sound icon. It looks great. There we go. Cool. Now we need to duplicate this. Command or Control J, and holding down Shift, drag it straight across to the other side of our little volume bar. Cool. Let's zoom out to 100%, kind of check to see what that looks like. Well, it's identifiable. We can definitely tell that it is supposed to be a sound bar. Now we need to create sort of the sound waves coming out of this little sound speaker icon, indicating, hey, there's no sound over here, lots of sound on this side. So I'm going to zoom out just a touch here. I'm going to readjust my, my Photoshop document, and I'm going to grab the Custom Shape tool yet again. We're going to open up our shapes. Remember, we've loaded all of our shapes. We want this bullseye shape right here, that guy right there. Hold down your Shift key and draw out a shape. There we go, very cool. And I'm going to grab the Direct Selection tool, and I'm just going to select the actual path, try to really specifically select the path for the center circle. You're going to see it's going to bring up the tangent handles for that part of the path that runs between those two anchors. Don't worry about that. Just go ahead and hit the Delete key. It's going to delete that portion of the path and consequently select the entire rest of the path. Once the entire rest of that path is selected, hit the Delete key again to get rid of it. Then drag a selection over these bottom 4 anchor points, these 4 that run from the middle of the bullseye to the bottom, and delete them using the Delete key. Great. Now that we've done that, you can grab your Path Selection tool and just select the whole path and hit Command or Control T. I'm going to hold down my Shift key and I'm going to rotate, and there we go. We've got what now sort of looks like some sound waves. We're going to hold down Shift and Alt. There'll be Shift and Option on the Mac. Scroll these guys way down, make them tiny. You can see it just looks like a cluster of anchor points. Again, so we can move this, hit Command or Control H, and we've gotten rid of all of that stuff, and drag this guy right down so we can place it here in front of our speaker icon. I'm going to use my arrow keys to just sort of fine-tune the adjustment. Command or Control H to bring up our anchor points again. Commit the change, and hit the little check icon again to deselect the path. That's what, because we had to do that because the Path Selection tool is what we were using. Don't worry about that, it's no big deal. And you can see it looks like a little sound icon now. Great. Now that we've done that, all we really have to do is go ahead and add a shine to the top of this and add a little close button to what looks like it would be sort of a standalone player that would pop out. We're going to sort of add a fancy box style close button. Let's focus on this shine, however, for the control bar first. I'm going to select my topmost layer here, and oh, you know what? What am I forgetting? We need to add a little knob for the volume slider. Let's grab the ellipse tool. There we go, right there, and just draw out a nice little circle. Something about that big should work, and this is going to be a piece of cake, really. Line it up with that path, and all we want to do is copy the layer style from our buttons, that sort of silver gradient, and drop it right onto these or to this knob. So I'm going to slide down, and here are my 5 arrows. So I'm just going to select one of these layers, and I'm going to go Layer, Layer Style, Copy Layer Style. Move up in my Layers panel, select this new shape, which is our volume slider, right there. And I'm going to go Layer, Layer Style, Paste Layer Style, just like that, just to give it a little gradient. Now we're going to grab our rectangle tool. I'm going to set my foreground color to white. Notice here it's inheriting that style, so I'm going to go Style, No Style. And, well, no, we don't want to do that actually, because we're going to get rid of the style on that shape layer. So let's just draw out our rectangle. We'll get rid of the style later. So I'm drawing out this rectangle, and what I'm trying to focus on is I want the bottom of the rectangle to split right through the point of the big play button. Just like that. You can see we have the gradient. Let's get rid of it like so. There we go. And we need to do a couple things with this. We need to mask it to our dock, but you can see this shape layer already has a mask. Well, it does have a mask. This is a vector mask. We can apply a second mask to this layer as well and sort of mask this, this mask. We're going to do that by Command or Control clicking our vector mask for the bottom shape layer, the shape to which we want to mask the shine, which is our actual dock. We're going to move back up, and we're going to go Layer, Layer Mask. See, right now we have a vector mask. You can have a vector mask and a layer mask on the same layer. We're going to go Layer Mask, Reveal Selection. So cover up everything except what's inside of the selection, and you can see what it does. Beautiful. You can see we have a second mask there on the layer. And we're going to reduce the opacity of this layer to about 10%, like so. Grab the Move tool. I'll select a different layer, and you can see it's a very, very subtle shine. For the sake of you being able to see it in the recording, we can jack it way up, but you can see that it's in there. We'll leave it around 20%. Now I'm going to zoom out just a little bit, and I'm going to move up to the top left corner where we're going to drop our Close button. So the Close button is going to be pretty simple. We're going to grab the Ellipse tool right there. We're going to draw out a small circle right up here. Very cool. And you can see now it's even identified the opacity of the underlying shape layer. There we go. We've got an opacity of 10. Well, what was 10%? We're going to set that back to 100. We don't want any kind of styling here. And we're going to set the fill of this shape layer. Double click on that color thumbnail. We're going to set it to black. Hit OK. Great. I'm going to use my Move tool, and I'm just going to make sure I've got it positioned exactly where I want, right there on the corner. And we need to apply 2 layer styles to this. We're going to go ahead and throw a stroke around it. So we're going to go Layer, Layer Style, Stroke. And we're going to set the size. We'll leave it at the default of 3, but change the position to inside and change the color to white. There we go. Hit OK. Looks great. We're going to give this guy a drop shadow as well. We're going to uncheck Use Global Light and just set the angle to 90 degrees. And just the default drop shadow settings are going to work fine for us. Hit OK. Last thing we need to do is grab the Custom Shape tool. You can do this with a custom shape, or you can just use the letter X with the Type tool. Just set the color to white, but then you need to set the text to bold and all kinds of crazy stuff. So just find the little X icon here, which yep, there it is. And just draw a shape right into the middle. Again, our fill is set to white, and it is going to inherit those layer styles, which really isn't going to matter. You're not going to see it, but just for the sake of being picky, I'm going to make sure I clear them by going Layer, Layer Style, Clear Layer Style. And there we go. Well, it's disappeared because the fill of that shape layer is black, not white. There we go. Set it to white. And I'm going to zoom out to 100%. Maybe zoom out a little bit further than that so we can see our handiwork. And you can see very, well, somewhat quickly, we've created the UI, or the user interface, for the Apple Trailers movie player, or at least what currently is that player. Either way, it's a cool little media player. We've designed it entirely in Photoshop. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned a thing or two. Thanks for stopping by and checking it out. Make sure you check out the site. That's www.tutvid.com for more great free video tutorials. Also, make sure you like us on Facebook and follow the Twitter feed @tutvid. Thanks so much for watching.